We at 100 Hands are very excited to be the design partners with mycelium in something that's so significant and relevant in conserving the environment. Hi, I'm Sunita Kundur. I'm a partner at 100 Hands Design. Our goal is to design a habitat that's really in harmony with the nature and the biodiversity of the site by keeping it really simple, using building with sustainable and renewable materials, by reducing energy consumption, and by designing very good water management systems.
I remember we had gone with Nishant and Abhishek to the site, and very casually Abhishek said, "You may want to watch your step because if you fall, you'll die." There are spikes, and it's very, very lush, very thick. The ground is constantly changing. The terrain is not a static terrain at all. Hi, I'm Bijoy Ramachandran. I'm a partner at 100 Hands Design. We're the architects for Dancing Frog Habitat. And so what we've discovered in the analysis of this large site is that we can actually string together along one of the contours almost all of the site and create a track through that forest to access these small houses that we're designing. I mean, to be embedded in the forest, to find this track and to get to the houses, that I think in and of itself will be quite amazing. The terrain, this incredibly heavy monsoon that comes every year, the fact that the site is wooded with so many trees, these are the particular challenges of this site. So working in a context like that, one is trying to do a building or buildings that are as light as possible, that are making the least imposition on that context as possible. So not only in terms of its construction and the materials we use, but also in its afterlife, in terms of how we deal with waste and how we deal with people living in that context. So like in all of our other projects here, of course, it's manifold. The challenges are much greater than we've ever faced before. But all of our projects are steeped in an understanding of the place in which we build. We start with that. All of these buildings are floating above the terrain. It allows a lot of the water systems that exist to continue to exist even after we build these houses. That we're not blocking existing conditions or making something that then alters substantially the existing nature of that site. In terms of architecture, of course, a lot of the units are oriented in a way to partake of the great landscape, the river, etc. That they're all places of prospect. All of the houses are places from which to view this incredibly verdant environment. So they sit in the landscape, offering to the landscape down below a very, very small and low slung building scale, so that the buildings don't have an imposition or aren't very heavy on the eye.
The building has to be very comfortable and efficient, but I think the focus has to be on what's outside and to enjoy that. Just to build something that doesn't disturb the landscape, but it's part of it, very, very in sync with the existing landscape, I think will be the goal.
So people like Richard Leplastrier, the great Australian architect, or Doshi, our own wonderful master here in Ahmedabad. A lot of our work is predicated on the lessons that we've learned from them. Values of empathy, of collaboration, of being sensitive to one's context, using frugal means to make architecture. These are the lessons and these are the principles on which we built our career. We stand on the shoulders of these giants. There is a tradition in Coorg and in a lot of, in Kerala, for instance, of the longhouse, the sort of really simple long plan which is naturally ventilated on both sides. This is something that our plan takes directly from. That a thin, long building in that context is the most sensitive way in which to work, so that you always get the breezes in a very, very humid condition. That's really the other thing that we've noticed a lot in Coorg, again in Kerala as well, is that buildings usually are completely open and filled with fenestrations and windows on the upper levels. So by elevating the building and keeping a completely open and porous envelope, you're able to receive all of the breezes and mitigate what is otherwise a fairly humid and difficult condition. So these the format of the plan and this idea of how you do the fenestrations and create this condition of cross ventilation, these are the direct sort of responses that are steeped in an understanding of cooled buildings and maybe coastal buildings along the Western Ghats. Yeah, so we've actually been very fortunate. I mean, and this has been true for our practice across time, that somehow the right people land up at the office when we're starting to work on projects. And so we've been fortunate to have a young architect named Pratik here, who has put in a lot of effort and probably knows a lot more about the project than I do. But he's spent a lot of time on site, he's done a lot of case studies, he's looked at tropical architecture. We made a small report that he put together just in terms of principles of building in this environment. I mean, what we talked about, these cool houses or the coastal architecture. So those, I mean, to get the right people and then to do the due diligence so that you understand, the conditions in which one is operating. We also, as part of our regular, exercise, also build models. We do a lot of 3D sort of SketchUp work so that we are able to inhabit these buildings that we're designing, so that we know for sure that the proportions are right, that it's a nice place to be in. So we've also started using VR to some extent, so that you can really, I mean, of course, it's not as beautiful and lush as the cool forest, but nonetheless, it gives you a sense of that contour and how these buildings are strewn across that, contour along that side. So. So these are some of the techniques, and we also did a whole bunch of case studies. We looked at Murcutt particularly. Glenn Murcutt is a very, very famous Australian architect who builds predominantly in steel, and so a lot of lessons from the cadence of those buildings, in the way that they're put together, in the proportions of those structures, that we take directly from these sources. And so that one visit to Coorg with Abhishek and with Nishant, our team members have also visited. I mean, just going there makes you really, it makes you pause in a way, so that you're deliberate about things that you do, you're careful and considered. And I believe that what we've produced has that quality, that it will be something that is light in its context and delicate in the way that it relates to that condition.